For our presentation, we researched one of the largest e-waste dumps in Western Africa. It is the third largest in the world and the second largest in West Africa. Agbogbloshie, Ghana, one of the suburbs of Accra, Ghana, which is the capital of Ghana, has become the dumping grounds for a majority of all of the electronic waste or e-waste from the Western world, such as computer monitors, batteries, old cell phones, and basically anything technological. Hundreds of tons of trash a year are brought to the Korle Lagoon to be disposed of. However, they just sit there in the slums. Western countries with enormous amounts of technological waste originally wanted to set up a donation program for developing countries and LEDCs, specifically in Africa, where they would give old televisions and computer monitors to citizens who could not normally afford any sort of technology whatsoever. However, it devolved into an enormous landfill, which has resulted in many environmental problems, which have had horrifying effects on the people and animals living in Accra and the surrounding areas. It has become so disgusting that the locals of Accra and people who live in the slums call it Sodom and Gomorrah. In this picture, you can see workers working in the dump and the enormous amount of waste that there is. You can see sinks and refrigerators and oil drums and all sorts of metal scrap waste that workers must toil over to burn and dispose of, or else it will just keep piling up and there will be nowhere else for it to go. In the city of Accra, Ghana, lies the Korle Lagoon, which is highly associated with Agbogbloshie and the digital dumping grounds. Because of the enormous amount of debris in and around the water, the Korle Lagoon has become one of the most polluted bodies of water on Earth. The water is highly contaminated with many of the poisons and runoff from the burned toxic waste, specifically the electronic trash. Some examples of these toxins include arsenic, lead, and mercury. These and many other toxins contaminate the water and the soil that people and animals rely on for growing food and for drinking water and for living in. These contaminants can cause extreme illnesses such as cancer and mercury and lead poisoning, which they don't have the medical supplies or healthcare to solve. This picture shows the sheer amount of waste, and you can see there are houses right nearby, and people get their drinking water from here. However, it is filled with cans and paper and anything you can imagine is in here. When Ghana started to receive the junk, it was not intended to pile up. Many of the electronic devices were sent as donations to bridge the so-called digital divide that was created from the technological and economic cleavage between LEDCs and MEDCs. However, when companies learned of this method of essentially disposal, they exploited it and sent their trash and labeled it as donations to Accra. Only approximately 50% of what is sent currently can be salvaged in any way, and the other 50% lies in waiting for kids and adults looking for scrap metal on the banks of the Korle Lagoon to earn money. In order to salvage a majority of this scrap metal, the plastic needs to be burned away, which forms many metal oxides found in the ash and smoke, and other poisonous oxides that pollute the air, water, and soil that people live in and around. The people that scavenge the area are poor and generally live in that same area for lack of a better option. This is one of the only ways for them to make any money or have any sort of trade value. Many of these poor workers have died from diseases such as cancer and lead and mercury poisoning, as well as animals who are forced to live in these areas as well because they have nowhere else to go, or people keep them on farms for food. The heavy metals released in the burning process easily migrate into homes, food markets, and other public areas. Ghanaian public health institutes such as the Blacksmith Institute and Green Advocacy Ghana have estimated that approximately 250,000 people are affected by this waste. In conclusion, many environmental organizations and international NGOs have been making an effort to restore the area, such as the OPEC Fund for International Development. They provided a loan for a project which would restore the Corley Lagoon and help dredge it and restore its surroundings. However, it's extremely invasive, and many of the restoration efforts have been disputed by the inhabitants of Agbogbloshie. It would require people to leave the area, which would cause a lack of jobs, and people would go into poverty, and many of the citizens would get extremely angry. The best solution at this point would be to come up with different ways to reduce the burning and the release of toxic chemicals into the air. Organizations are trying as hard as possible to achieve this. However, it is proving extremely difficult. Thank you for watching our presentation.